Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of our F1 2021 My Driver career mode here on the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. We have just 2 races remaining left in this season here, in season 3 of this My Driver series here, as we make our final couple starts as well with Aston Martin. And what better track to come to than a brand new one here on the circuit very late in the season when a championship is on the line for 3 drivers between Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, as well as Valtteri Bottas. Now, as we are looking at the Jeddah circuit here in Saudi Arabia, a track that I have found very fun to drive throughout this episode. Now, going into this episode, all I had done is make 1 or 2 laps in time trial, so I wasn't really familiar with the track. I just wanted to make sure the setup felt okay, and it did. But yeah, wasn't very familiar with it still, and I was a little bit nervous about hitting my marks correctly, hitting my apexes, and making sure I'm going to get myself in a good qualifying position, and as well in a good race pace. But practice went pretty smooth, and overall felt pretty good with how the car was driving. Really, at this point in the season, with 2 GPs remaining, all we're trying to really do is beat our teammate of Sebastian Vettel on the points, because it's actually pretty tight between himself and I. So with a good run here in Jeddah and a good run in Abu Dhabi, we could very well get ourselves ahead of Sebastian by the end of the season and come out on top just like we did last season there in the points. But it's still going to be a tough battle nonetheless, and I'm excited for it here now, as practice, like I said, went very smooth. We found ourselves down there in P8, but that was on the medium compound tire versus Sebastian, who was second, but he was on the soft compound tire. There's some advantages here in Jeddah to our Aston Martin. We don't have the best engine anymore, but we still have a very competitive engine in a straight line. So in Jeddah, we could definitely use that to our advantage at certain portions of this track, as we're going to waste no time and jump through into the qualifying session. Really, the goal was to just try and get into Q3 this time. We've been struggling late in the season to make it into Q3, so I'm hopeful we can do that now. As we make that transition though to McLaren next season, we know that really it shouldn't be any issue getting into Q3 with McLaren. No regulation changes coming at the end of the season into next season, so that means we're going to be driving for one of the best teams in Formula 1 next season here in the career mode with the McLaren team. There's going to be a bit of a rebrand. You guys will see what that's about here relatively soon, as well as we know some new engine suppliers, new teams are coming in. Porsche is going to be going into the sport with Williams, and then we just had Audi, who's going to be taking over the Andretti team. So Audi coming in, Porsche coming in. Very exciting times ahead here for this career mode. I can confirm after the Abu Dhabi episode in the next one, it will be a little bit of time between that and the start of the next season, probably a good 4 or 5 days, simply because I'm going to be behind the scenes getting all of the cars, the fire suits, and team livery designs prepared to be in the game correctly for the start of the next season. And it will be a bit shorter of a season, not significantly shorter, but there will be probably a handful of less GPs now, as we would make it into Q3 simply because I was able to use Yuki Tsunoda's slipstream the whole lap to increase my speed, and that would actually put me P1 here in session 2 for qualifying. So this set us up great for this qualifying session right here, Q3, and I learned a lot from Q2 by following in the slipstream of Tsunoda that I did the same thing with Lando Norris. You get yourself right in the perfect area to just follow close enough in that slipstream to where it's not really affecting you in the corners, and it would work very well again for myself here in Q3, as well as you're going to see us just barely stay within that slipstream range of Lando Norris, and it would make a big difference by the time we come through to end our lap. Vettel, he's going to be all the way at the bottom of the top 10, but we cross the line and we will go P5, and that's exactly where we would end up qualifying here now in Jeddah, as Vettel and Hamilton way off. Not sure what happened to them, but maybe they made some mistakes, but we're going to roll off the grid P5. Let's head to the grid in Jeddah.
So here we are then, welcoming you today to one of the jewels of the Arab world, Jeddah. One of the biggest cities in Saudi Arabia, second only to Riyadh, gateway to Mecca, and one of the biggest ports in the region. And now, host to the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. So let's take a look at the topographical map of the Jeddah street circuit. As you can see, a number of challenging corners for the drivers to master here. We'll see just how much the teams have benefited from their time spent in practice this weekend. And like many street circuits, this track has the potential to punish drivers that get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid any safety cars today. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box. And it's fantastic to have you with us here today, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the run down into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he starts from pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, the rookie, Daniel Ricciardo, and Tsunoda, Russell, Gasly, Latifi, and Charles Leclerc. They've taken a grid penalty. Perez, Mick Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, and Stroll. Vettel, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Sainz, Esteban Ocon, and Antonio Giovinazzi. Joe, they've taken a grid penalty. And Callum Ilott. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
There you saw the grid, and big points already to touch upon. Some grid penalties, most importantly to Lewis Hamilton. After an engine failure in the last episode, we expected to see that, and sure enough, he takes a grid penalty, which is going to be key here, potentially deciding his hopes to stay in this championship battle at the end of this episode. Sebastian Vettel, Carlos Sainz as well with some grid penalties here. Now as it's Verstappen, Norris, Bottas, who's still in the championship battle there in P3 now, as it's going to be lights out and we are underway for the Saudi Arabian GP. Verstappen gets off the grid well. He's going to be easy down into turn 1 ahead of everybody now. Norris and then Ricciardo side by side with Valtteri Bottas there, as Norris of course hoping Ricciardo comes out on top of that battle and puts the car between himself and Bottas, and that's exactly what's going to happen. The Australian of Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Valtteri Bottas now, as you can see a bunch of scrapping it out in the background there with Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Sebastian Vettel. All three of those drivers have a lot of slower traffic to work through, but this track with how tight it is and the way these corners are, very sweeping corners, they really got to be patient and careful with their moves here. Now as you see Bottas down in that 4th position, not the start he was looking for, as he knows he's going to need to beat Lando Norris today if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive going into the final round in Abu Dhabi. And same for Lewis Hamilton, who had that engine failure on just the 2nd lap last episode in the Australian GP, not what that Mercedes team wanted to see, and obviously Bottas took that grid penalty, and that ended up paying off for him because he kept his engine alive here now in the last episode. Now as you can see, Hamilton struggling right here behind the Haas. Vettel was able to get past, but like you said, you got to be very patient with the way this racetrack is, with the flowing corners and the very tight parameters that you have. And you're going to see right now Vettel, he's going to go around the Haas, and here comes Lewis Hamilton. Stroll as well as Schumacher playing a very large role in the opening lap here of this race. Hamilton to the outside of Mick Schumacher here now as they come through out of the corner. You don't expect Schumacher to make it too easy on Lewis Hamilton here now as he's looking for his 8th world title, but finally down the front straightaway Hamilton has an opportunity to get past the German down into turn 1. Vettel just making a pass there on Nicholas Latifi now, as surprisingly Schumacher's able to hold on around the outside of Lewis here now, as he's just had a terrible first lap, but finally Lewis Hamilton will get past Schumacher, but then he's gonna have to go run down Lance Stroll. You see Carlos Sainz, he's trying to go around the outside of the 31 of Ocon there. Now is another driver that took a grid penalty here now, and Sainz having a tough time and actually has to back out of it there, and Esteban holds on to the position for the time being. Lewis Hamilton now going to try and go around the outside of Lance Stroll. There's Nicholas Latifi in the Williams just in front as they go down in through this banked left-hand curve here. Now as they exit Hamilton, he's going to catch the wall actually, and he would do damage to his wing, and immediately he would have to come into the pit lane for a brand new front wing. Lewis Hamilton might have just ended his own championship chances here on once again lap 2, just like the last episode in Australia. So a big moment right there, and he is going to need a safety car to get his hopes back alive to fight for this championship here. Now coming to lap 4, Vettel and Perez as well as Charles Leclerc all scrapping it out. Vettel has had a great start to this GP. They're 3 wide as they come through turn 1, 2, and 3, and you saw Perez make contact right there with Leclerc, and Perez would battle back to the right hand side of Vettel, but would eventually lose out on it because he actually picked up some wing damage. Perez would have to come into the pit lane at the end of the lap. He would have to replace his front wing as well. well, just like Hamilton did a few laps prior. So by the time I had come through to start lap 4, I was actually able to make a pass right here on Yuki Tsunoda here as we go down into turn 1, but he's actually going to fight back here as he's going to try and stick it around the left-hand side, but I would get in front of him and try to run down Valtteri Bottas in 4th place, but a big moment there going into the final corner. I stepped it in just a little bit too far, and unfortunately we paid the price for it. Fortunately though, we saved it, we kept it out of the barrier, and we would run down Tsunoda once again and just breeze right back on past him here now. But hold up, it's not over yet, as he kind of caught me off guard. I didn't think he was still going to be alongside of us as we went into the braking zone. So we continue this little scrap here with the Japanese driver of Yuki Tsunoda, who just picked up his first win of his Formula 1 career recently in the Brazilian GP, as we continue wheel to wheel, side by side into that final turn. But it'll be Tsunoda who briefly comes back out on top, but we have DRS. He doesn't. We should be able to get him down into turn 1, as he is putting up one heck of a fight so far. But finally, we get past Tsunoda as we go down into turn 1 on lap 7. I thought it was over right there and we would get away, but I was wrong. Tsunoda would hang with me right there. I made another mistake there off the curbing. I clipped the curbing and it had a little bit of a dip in the track and it unsettled the car, so he would get back past. And then I said, well, hold up, I still want to get back past you. So I go around the outside down into turn 1, and we find ourselves in a very just wheel-to-wheel hectic battle right here with Yuki Tsunoda. Now that's been continuing for a good 2 or so laps here now, as I just didn't want to take a side-by-side into that corner, so we would have to wait and time it out again. So going into the final turn, trying to go around the outside, and unfortunately this battle that we are having with Tsunoda that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon has brought his teammate of Pierre Gasly into the mix. But now we have the DRS, no ERS for the moment, but now it's back up. But here comes Gasly there, right to our back gearbox as we go down into turn 1. Tsunoda's going to send it up the inside. I didn't notice it, and I'm going to get spun out by Yuki Tsunoda after some contact there on the left rear, and around we went. That, in my opinion, was my fault there. There's, you're going to see it. I ran him out of room. That was all me. I didn't realize he was going to stick his nose up there. By the time I did, I had already committed, and unfortunately I spun myself out. That heated battle there for 2-3 laps of Tsunoda unfortunately ends in disaster. My tires were lit up on the rears, as you could imagine, but by the time we come through to the conclusion of lap 10, I would elect to come into the pit lane here and put on our only set of mediums for the race, and that would be it, just a medium set of compound tires, and then we're going to the end from there. And I didn't realize I apparently did damage to my front wing, because the team would actually replace the front wing. I don't know where that came from. Frustrating moment though overall there with that moment with Tsunoda. Like I said, that was all my fault in my opinion there, as he definitely, you know, got a little aggressive. He sent it up the inside, but at the same time, I tried to close the door on him without realizing he was going to send it, and I pretty blatantly came across his nose. So I would expect he would also have to replace his front wing when he comes into the pit lane here momentarily. Now, as we came through to lap 12, there's Lando Norris, Valtteri Bottas, the 2 championship contenders right now, going at it here in Saudi Arabia in the pit lane. Verstappen had already made his pit stop along with Daniel Ricciardo, and they were both going to cycle out here towards the front. Verstappen will take the lead over Norris. Ricciardo's going to be P3. Bottas is still going to find himself in P4, and then I come through to make a nice little pass there on Ocon right now, who's on a different strategy than us. And as we go down into turn 1, look who it is on the left-hand side there. You saw him briefly, and behind us is Yuki Tsunoda, and I was just a little bit annoyed at this point because I realized we're going to have to deal with him again. And here as we come through towards the end of lap 12, Tsunoda, once again, both of us, I feel like we're so evenly matched on pace, and that's why we can't escape each other in this GP, because he would get past, but then down into turn 1, I try to make a lunge up the inside. He has a lock up there on the left front, nearly makes some contact actually with Tsunoda as we continue wheel to wheel again. This side-by-side battle we thought was over certainly is not here. Now as I get a little bit aggressive, I go off track there sideways. Somehow I don't get called for anything right there, and we maintain the 11th position. That's the highlight of this video so far, as we've just been battling it out with Yuki Tsunoda here so far. And as we came through again to lap 14, same situation. Tsunoda's going to plow right on through on the inside down into turn 1, so we drop back down to P12, and it just continued to go back and forth here. Now on lap 14, we get a little bit close to him. He was closing in on now Sergio Perez, who's obviously off strategy. As we go down into turn 1, no battle this time, thank goodness, but we were already coming up on the final 10 laps of this GP, which has been a very calm GP other than this battle with Tsunoda. Hamilton still well out of the battle and needs a safety car quick to keep his championship hopes alive, and Bottas still 2 positions behind Norris. Needs a little bit of help to beat Norris here. now as I'm gonna now once again make the pass on Tsunoda, an easy pass right there, but then the front straightaway I ran myself out of ERS again, and here comes Tsunoda once again right on by and takes over P10. I'm gonna lunge it around the outside just about there into turn one, a bit of a lockup. We're gonna try a bit of a switchback here on Tsunoda, and it works to perfection just about here as we find ourselves alongside his side pod here, right at that right rear, but once again he stays ahead here, but it wouldn't be over. Coming through to that front straightaway, 18 laps in, 25 laps total. We pass Tsunoda again and finally get back into the points here as we were running down Carlos Sainz. Guess what though? It wasn't over because around goes Tsunoda once again. And I feel like we were, you know, fighting hard but helping each other at the same time, because I was giving him DRS to go and pass me, then he would give me DRS, I would go and pass him, and we were kind of pulling each other along here. Now, as you can see, Tsunoda going to make a lunge to the right-hand side. I'm going to take it 3 wide, down into turn 1 with Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard. Down into the corner, though, we keep it wheel to wheel. Thank goodness the 3 wide was settled before the corner, and we move back up into P10. Once again, a different strategy than what Carlos Sainz is on it right now, so we have somehow had a nice rebound into the points here in P10. And then on lap 21, Valtteri Bottas is out of the session. Bottas has had an engine failure, just like Lewis Hamilton had in Australia, and now if things stay the way it is with Lando Norris in second place, that will be the end of the championship battle. Hamilton well outside of the points, Bottas out of the race. Lando Norris is about to be the Formula 1 world champion here for the McLaren team for the first time in his career now, as we continue this streak of first-time champions in this F1 career mode. But Lando still has 3 laps to go, as this battle would just never end with Yuki Tsunoda. It was an unbelievable battle here, and we would just continue it on. 2 laps to go. Once again, we get past him down into turn 1. Max Verstappen still out in front. Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo, your top 3 behind him as we were coming through to start the final lap. Tsunoda back in front, but then front straightaway comes through on the final lap. I make the dive down into turn 1. We get in front of Tsunoda once again here. Now, by the time things had officially cycled through with drivers having issues and pit stops, we found ourselves in P7 on this final lap. A race-long battle we've had with Yuki Tsunoda. He's got DRS one final time here now, and he has a huge run. He's going to send it down into the banked left turn, contact wheel to wheel with Tsunoda. He caught me way off guard. I didn't expect to move right there. We nearly made contact again. What an aggressive move, but it worked to perfection for Yuki Tsunoda. As that's happening, Max Verstappen wins the GP. Lando Norris finishes second and becomes the Formula 1 world champion here, 1 GP early. As we continue though with this battle with Tsunoda, a very deep dive, and somehow we keep it within the track parameters, but you saw I had to really slow up, and that puts Tsunoda right on my gearbox. DRS activated for Tsunoda here on this final straightaway towards that final hairpin. He's going to make the lunge to the right hand side as I cover the left side down into the final hairpin for the final time. We place our car to perfection, but we still got to hang on this front straightaway for the final time. DRS open here right now for Tsunoda. It's going to be a drag race to the line, but I think it's going to be yes it will be us getting P7 after a race-long wheel-to-wheel battle back and forth with Yuki Tsunoda. Unbelievable. I've never had anything like that since I've started playing this game, as Sebastian Vettel gets driver of the day, gets more points than us in P4. Let's head to the podium.
It's certainly been an incredible year for Formula 1, and our drivers have all pushed themselves this season, making it one of the most compelling years of racing in history. There can only be one champion, however, and here they are now, our new Formula 1 World Drivers' Champion. And that brings the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix to a close then, as we reflect on the team's impressive performance today. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
I really feel the track layout combined with the track temperatures we saw today suited their car. These cars come alive when the tyres are just at the right temperature, and the driver did a great job managing that as well. They just look so comfortable out there. It's like anything, it always looks so easy when it all just clicks.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everyone at the team.
What a GP here in Jeddah. You know, it was a very calm GP. I mean, we had a race-long battle there with Tsunoda, but Lando Norris and the McLaren racing team have become the champions for at least the driver's standings. But that's not it, because there is still a Constructors' Championship battle in Abu Dhabi to take care of because of Mercedes issues. No points for Mercedes in this episode, has now reduced their lead to 19 points over McLaren going into the next episode. And I can tell you right now, that sounds like a relatively safe gap, but if you guys remember last season, it is not. They had a very similar gap going into the final race, and they literally lost the Constructors' Championship on the final lap of the GP due to myself and Sebastian Vettel putting the attack on that Mercedes team on that final lap after a late race safety car. So that battle is certainly not over, and we will decide that Constructors in the next episode. But the Drivers' Championship has been decided. Mercedes and the reliability kind of bit them here at the end of the season, and Hamilton and Bottas fall short. I will see you guys in the next one for Abu Dhabi. Have a great day, everybody.